I could smell the red wine before I saw it. Someone had just refilled Sarah's glass, a Merlot she'd been nursing through appetizers. The light over the dining table was too bright, one of those modern fixtures she'd picked out, all brushed nickel and exposed bulbs. I was standing near the kitchen doorway with my plate, half listening to a conversation about vacation rentals, when I heard her voice cut through the noise. Clear, certain. "Oh, Tom's work? It's nothing exciting. He does compliance stuff. Very tedious. I don't even try to explain it to people anymore." She laughed. The woman next to her, Jennifer, I think, smiled politely. Sarah leaned closer. "Honestly, he's a little too boring for this crowd. Sweet guy, but not exactly the life of the party." I didn't shout. I didn't correct her. I set my plate down on the counter and walked to the bathroom, where I stood with my hands braced against the sink and watched water run until my breathing slowed. When I came back, no one had noticed I'd left. They had no idea what I actually did, and they were about to find out. My name is Tom Carrick. I was 51 years old and had been married to Sarah for 19 years. On paper, I worked in compliance, and that part was true. What she never cared to ask was what kind. I wasn't filing reports for mid-tier insurance firms. I was the senior compliance auditor for a multinational aerospace defense contractor, specializing in export controls and classified materials oversight. My security clearance was higher than most people knew existed. I testified before congressional subcommittees. I'd walk senators through satellite encryption protocols. But at home, my work was invisible. Sarah had long ago decided it wasn't worth her curiosity. Over the years, I'd learned not to bring it up. When her friends asked what I did, she'd wave it off before I could answer. When I mentioned a work trip to Brussels or a deposition in DC, she'd change the subject to her book club or her Pilates instructor. I let it go. I let a lot go. The kitchen table became the place where I paid bills in silence while she scrolled her phone. The car rides turned quiet, except for her podcast playing through the speakers. I told myself marriage was like this, comfortable, predictable. I didn't see the erosion. I just felt it, in the way she stopped looking up when I came home. The dinner party was at our house. Sarah had insisted on hosting because she wanted to impress a new circle. Women from her boutique fitness studio and their husbands. High earners, polished. The kind of people who name-dropped architects and whispered about real estate comps. I'd set up the bar, arranged the chairs, made sure the music was right. I was useful for logistics. During dinner, the conversation turned to careers. One man ran a chain of dental practices. Another did something vague in venture capital. When they turned to me, I started to explain my role. Sarah cut me off mid-sentence. "He's in compliance, very dry stuff." She smiled at the table. "I honestly tune out when he talks about it." A few people chuckled. I saw Jennifer's husband, a guy named Rick who wore too much cologne, smirk into his wine glass. Sarah touched his arm lightly as she refilled his drink. "Tom's steady, reliable, but let's just say he's not going to wow you with war stories." I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just nodded and said, "She's right, it's not glamorous." Sarah looked satisfied. Rick looked bored. That was the moment something inside me went quiet. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my side of the bed, staring at the ceiling, while Sarah scrolled Instagram beside me. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and went to my office. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my work messages. Emails from deputy directors, encrypted briefs, invitations to classified briefings I couldn't even name aloud. I opened my LinkedIn, something I rarely checked. My profile was sparse by design, but the recommendations were there. A former Assistant Secretary of Defense had written one. A retired Air Force colonel had written another. I took a screenshot. Then I opened my calendar. The following week, I had meetings scheduled with congressional staffers, a satellite manufacturer's legal team, and a DoD ethics panel. I took more screenshots. I wasn't angry. I felt something sharper than anger. I felt clarity. The next morning, I called my attorney, a guy named Paul I'd worked with on estate planning years ago. I didn't tell him why. I just asked him to walk me through the process of asset separation in Virginia. He asked if everything was okay. I said, I'm just preparing. The following days were methodical. I started a folder on my laptop labeled Financial Review. Nothing suspicious, just organized. I pulled joint account statements going back 5 years. I noticed patterns. Thousands to her personal training business that never seemed to generate revenue. Charges to boutique hotels on weekends I'd been traveling for work. Dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. I didn't confront her. I just documented. I forwarded relevant statements to my personal email. I changed my direct deposit to route a portion into an account she didn't monitor. Small moves. Invisible. At work, I had a security review coming up. A routine polygraph required every few years for clearance renewal. During the pre-interview, the examiner asked if there were any personal stressors that might affect the results. I told him my marriage was under strain. He made a note. I passed without issue. 2 weeks after the dinner party, my phone buzzed during a meeting. It was Sarah. Can you pick up dinner on your way home? I'm running late. I texted back, sure. I stopped at the store, bought what she asked for, and set it on the counter when I got home. She barely looked up. I realized I didn't mind. Sarah began to escalate in small ways. She'd make comments in front of her friends about my lack of ambition. She'd sigh loudly when I declined invitations to events I knew she wanted me to skip anyway. One evening, she told me she thought we should take some space to figure out what we wanted. I asked what that meant. She said maybe I could stay somewhere else for a few days. I checked the time. It was 6:47 p.m. I said, okay. I packed a bag and checked into a Marriott near my office. The room smelled like synthetic lemon and laundry detergent. I sat on the edge of the bed and felt a strange kind of peace. That night, I got a text from her. You're not even going to fight for us? I didn't reply. 3 days later, I got another. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You don't care. I screenshotted it. I didn't respond. Silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. A week passed. My attorney called. He'd received a message from Sarah's lawyer, someone she'd apparently already retained. They wanted to discuss terms. Paul asked if I'd expected this. I said yes. He asked what I wanted. I said, everything documented, everything fair, and I want it done quietly. He said he could do that. The systems began to move. My bank flagged unusual transfer attempts from our joint account. Sarah trying to move funds into her personal account. The transfer was blocked pending both signatures. My attorney sent a formal request for financial disclosure. Her lawyer responded with a list of demands: the house, half my retirement, alimony calculations that assumed my income was far less than it actually was. Paul called me. Did she ever ask what you actually earn? I said no. He laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. The next week I received a call from my company's security office. Someone had made an inquiry about my employment status, likely Sarah or her attorney trying to verify income for the settlement. The security officer informed me that due to the classified nature of my work, they'd provided only my title and a generalized GS equivalent salary range, which significantly understated my actual compensation. Bonuses, clearance stipends, and consulting fees weren't listed. I thanked him. That evening, Sarah called. Why is this so complicated? Just tell me what you make. I said, you never asked before. She hung up. I checked the time. It was 8:14 p.m. I went to bed early. Sarah's texts became more frequent. You're being ridiculous. We can fix this. Why are you acting like this? I didn't block her. I just stopped reading them immediately. I'd check once a day, screenshot anything that mattered, and file it away. Her friends started reaching out. Jennifer sent a message asking if I was okay. I replied, I'm fine, thank you. Rick sent one asking what happened. I didn't reply. Sarah's sister called. I let it go to voicemail. My attorney advised me to keep a log of all contact. I did. Weeks passed. I moved into a furnished apartment near the office. Clean, quiet, nothing unnecessary. I worked. I ran in the mornings. I ate simple meals. I didn't feel lonely. I felt unburdened. One evening, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Sarah's attorney requesting a settlement conference. Paul forwarded me the proposed date and location, a conference room at her lawyer's office. I replied, "I'll be there." I didn't prepare a speech. I prepared documents. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a parking garage. Sarah sat across from me, her lawyer beside her. Paul sat next to me with a leather binder. Sarah looked smaller than I remembered, tired. Her lawyer opened with pleasantries, then moved to terms. She outlined Sarah's requests: the house, valued at $620,000, half my pension, alimony at $4,200 per month. She slid a settlement proposal across the table. I didn't touch it. I looked at Sarah. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Paul opened his binder. He slid a different set of documents across the table. Tax returns showing my actual income. Statements showing consulting fees and clearance bonuses Sarah never knew existed. Records of her unauthorized transfer attempts. Receipts from hotels and restaurants during my work travel. Dates and locations that contradicted charges on our joint card. He placed a final document on top. A log of her text messages over the past 6 weeks, highlighting several that could be classified as harassment. Sarah's lawyer leaned forward. Her voice changed. "We weren't aware of these specifics." Paul said, "Your client never asked." Sarah's face went pale. She looked at me. "Tom, I didn't." I held up my hand. I spoke quietly. "You told your friends I was boring. You told them my work didn't matter. You never once asked what I actually did. You just decided I wasn't worth your time." She started to cry. I didn't soften. "I didn't break anything, Sarah. I stopped pretending." I stood. Paul gathered his documents. I walked out first. I didn't wait for her response. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Sarah signed the revised settlement. She kept the house but assumed the mortgage. I kept my retirement and my accounts. No alimony, no drama. The paperwork was delivered by courier. I signed it in my apartment, alone, with the window cracked and cool air coming through. I could hear rain starting outside. I made coffee. I sat at the small kitchen table and looked at the signature line. My name in blue ink, dated and witnessed. I felt something close to relief. Not triumph, not vindication, just clarity. A few days later, I got a message from Jennifer. She'd heard about the divorce. She said she was sorry. Then she wrote, "For what it's worth, I looked you up after that dinner. I had no idea what you actually did. That's really impressive." I replied, "Thank you." I didn't say more. The truth was, I didn't need her to know. I didn't need anyone to know. I'd spent 19 years being invisible in my own home. Now I was just visible to myself. I changed the locks on my apartment, even though no one had a key. I deleted Sarah's contact from my favorites. I didn't block her, just moved her to the general list. I updated my emergency contact at work. I filed my tax return as single. Small acts, definitive. One Saturday morning, I woke early and went for a run along the river trail near my building. The light was soft. The air smelled like wet grass. I didn't listen to music. I just listened to my breathing and my footsteps. When I got back, I made breakfast: eggs, toast, black coffee. I sat by the window and watched people walk their dogs. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. Silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's preparation. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is stop explaining yourself and start living like you already know your worth. I didn't need to be the life of the party. I just needed to be alive in my own life. If you'd been in my place, would you have spoken up at that dinner? Or would you have let the silence do the work? Tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I read every one. Your presence here means more than you know. If stories like this matter to you, if they make you think or feel seen, subscribe. Let's keep walking this road together.